when and if you were to satirize Putin in one of your upcoming works, what would be the soft spot you would go for? What would be his Achilles heel, so to say?
It's his isolation, I think.
Wow.
It's the fact that everyone, I mean, the iconic symbol is that massive long table that he meets people, the 12-foot long, bigger than the Sistine Chapel in Lake. There's that, and I imagine him in a world where every day people are further and further away from him, and all he's got left is him and his shadow, and then maybe he's scared of his shadow and his reflection, and they're gradually reduced as well. He looks like a very lonely figure, really.
In his mind, the great Tsars usually are.
Yes, and that's his perpetual complaint, isn't it? That the West is laughing at Russia, the world is laughing. They're not laughing now. It's this very human, I think, very vulnerable sense of vulnerability, of being attacked. There's an insecurity there that can only be processed by these very macho, we've got missiles, we've got even worse things we can do, the threats. But that's the sign of a bully. That's how a bully, but he's a bully on the world stage. There are already, we hear rumors of the fact that people can only tell Putin what he wants to hear. So the military presented him with this case in advance that the war would be a very quick thing, that the people in Ukraine would rise up and welcome, and that's what happens. When you spread fear and terror, which is what the death of Stalin's about, really, this individual who so terrorized everyone around him that it caused his own death. He collapsed of a stroke in the middle of the night, but people were too scared to open the door, see if he was okay. People were too scared to ring for a doctor before they'd consulted the entire committee. They were scared over which doctor they called, So this was someone who instilled terror throughout, and that's what caused his own death. I think that's the situation that Putin is facing in, that he's now been fed these facts that are not facts, they're just made up. They're just the most positive things people can tell him without being arrested. And so he lives in this bubble he's created himself, which is a bubble of unreality. It'll get him in the end.
I want to ask you about the phenomenon of Zelensky, because how a comic who, start telling jokes became basically the flag bearer of truth in the world. And what's the phenomenon of that?
Well, he's also was an astute businessman. It's his production company that he ran. It's just because you write jokes doesn't mean to say you're an idiot. You can be competent too. And also, the humour he was doing was very much analysing the political process, and
it was a remake of
pushing the kind of prodding it to see where it was weak and vulnerable, and then trying to come up with something that highlighted that. That's what his comic persona was about. So it's someone who's very astutely aware of how power politics works, and also it's about how you get a message, how you tell your story, how every joke is a little story, really, and it's how it's that creative engagement with the world, really.